Welcome everyone. In today's video, I will be doing a review of the top 5 best perpetual futures dexes to trade on right now. So with the fall of FTX, Binance facing sanctions, as well as other centralized exchanges out there restricting access to perpetual futures, there is going to be a big migration towards perpetual futures dexes. So I've got a list up here on DeFi Llama. If you go to this website, I'll leave a link in the description down below. You can check out all of the various different perpetual futures dexes and what chains they're actually on. So you can pick and choose which ones you'll actually want to go to. But for this video, I'm going to make it easy for you. I'm going to talk about the 5 best to visit right now, so you don't have to personally go through yourself and check out every single one. One thing to note before I get into the video is that I won't be including DYDX or Vertex. They are good perpetual futures dexes, but they have region locks on them. So me being from the UK, I can't use them. So I won't be covering them in this video. If using VPNs isn't something that you're ever worried about or you're okay using, then go ahead. DYDX and Vertex are both good places to go. Now, the first perpetual futures dex I wanted to talk about is Aevo, which is an optimistic rollup that offers both perpetual futures and options trading. So there is going to be a number of criteria of which that I actually talk about these perpetual futures dexes. So that criteria is going to be a number of markets and their quality, liquidity, spreads, leverage, fees, advanced order types, and special features that each perp futures dex actually has. So we'll start off with markets. So Aevo has a number of markets, and you've got sort of mixed quality there, but mostly stuff that I want to trade. So you have 46 markets in total, so stuff ranging from obviously Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, Bonk, Pepe, Injective, Curve, BitSensor, Friendtech, bunch of markets there, and a bunch of exotic markets too. So mostly stuff I want to trade, and so I quite like the choice that is available on Aevo. Now, in terms of liquidity, the liquidity is pretty good. As you can see here, the Solana books are decently thick, and you will see that on most of the sort of major pairs here on Aevo. If you're going to some of the sort of less traded markets, of course, the books are going to be a lot thinner there. Now, when it comes to spreads, they are generally on the higher end compared to the other perpetual futures dexes that I'm going to be speaking about today. They're not terrible, but that is just something that you're going to have to deal with when you are trading on Aevo. Now, in terms of leverage, on most pairs, you're given up to 20x leverage. Of course, that's not going to be on every market. Some of the smaller markets, I want to say like Banana, for example, I don't think you can use 20x leverage. You've got at most 2x leverage here for the Banana market, but for most of the other more liquid markets that you can trade, yeah, you do get up to 20x leverage. And in terms of fees that Aevo actually charge, they've got 0.05% for notional taker fees and 0.03% for maker fees. So if you are a market maker, there are probably better places to go than Aevo. I'll be speaking about other perpetual futures dexes that actually have maker rebates. And in terms of taker fees, this is more middle of the road, right? 0.05%. You do have a few that are cheaper, and then you have one that's more expensive, but it's generally cheaper than say going to Binance, for example, and trading there. In terms of advanced order types, you have what you would expect: market limit, stop loss limit, take profits, that sort of thing. So just generally what you would expect from a perpetual futures dex. And in terms of special features, Aevo has a few. So the first one is that you can use Ethereum as base collateral. You can use Bitcoin as base collateral as well. And you can also swap those collaterals around. So you can do token swaps. So you can swap that USDC into ETH or into Bitcoin if you want, and then use that as your base collateral. So that's pretty cool. Another cool feature is that they have pre-launch token markets. So you can trade the Jupiter airdrop or Blast, for example, and this enables you to speculate on more markets or speculate on the value of more markets, which is pretty cool, as well as it opens up strategies that allow you to hedge your like blast deposit, for example, or your Jupiter airdrop, which could allow you to effectively lock in a price at which you want to sell it before the market is actually open. So that's actually pretty awesome. And as you can tell, I'm a big fan of pre-launch token markets. Now, the next perpetual futures DEX I wanted to talk about is Hyperliquid. So Hyperliquid is its own purpose-built layer 1 offering perpetual futures trading. Now, in terms of markets and their quality, you just have a ton of markets here on Hyperliquid. I mean, I'm just scrolling down here and it just seems endless. I mean, it's not endless. They have 91 markets, right? But it's almost everything that I'd ever want to trade. Of course, there are some stuff I would want to trade that aren't quite here. Like, say, for example, BitSensor, it's not here, but they have everything else like Celestia, Audi. They're pretty good for listing new markets. Now, in terms of liquidity, I think Hyperliquid might have the thickest books out of all of the perpetual futures DEXs out there. Just comparing like the Sol order book, for example, compared to like Aevo or DYDX, I think it is a lot thicker than both of those. Hyperliquid scores very highly in liquidity. Now, in terms of spreads, they are tight basically on all of the markets that you want to trade on. If I just go to like Lido, for example, the spread is like quite thin. If I go to something else like Filecoin, the spread is quite thin as well. And that's going to be for most of the markets that you want to trade on Hyperliquid. So just taking a look at the fees on Hyperliquid, they're charging 0.025% for notional taker. And that's going to be the cheapest out of all of the perpetual futures DEXs that I'm covering today. So 0.025% is actually really, really good. And they're giving market maker rebates as well, which is probably the reason why the books are so thick and the spreads are so tight. And in terms of advanced order types, they have market limits, stop limit, stop market, and scale. So scale is pretty cool, and it's something that you only really see on centralized exchanges. This is the first perpetual futures DEX that I've seen that implemented scale orders. Now, in terms of special features, you have pre-launch token markets here on Hyperliquid as well, so you can trade the Jupiter airdrop. They also have the potential layer 0 token, so that's rallied quite a bit. And another special feature of Hyperliquid is that it is gasless. So whenever you want to do a trade, you don't have to sign another transaction or pay additional fees for gas as well. So that's pretty cool. The next perpetual futures DEX I want to talk about is RabbitX, which is a perpetual futures DEX on Starknet. So in terms of number of markets and quality, you have a very small amount here. Well, I say small, it's more than say like GMX, for example, or some of the other perp DEXs out there like Satori Finance, which only offer Bitcoin and Ethereum. You do have 26 markets here, but you are lacking some of the stuff that I would want to trade. Like if I see a new coin in Twitter, I just know it's not going to be listed on RabbitX. But you've got some decent stuff here, like Render, Audi, Stargate Finance. And of course the majors, so like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Arbitrum, Optimism, Dogecoin, that kind of thing. Now, in terms of liquidity, you're going to have a decent liquidity on most of the majors. They aren't going to be as thick as some of the other perpetual futures DEXs that I've spoken about today. But for the most part, it depends on how much size you're trading, right? And in terms of spreads, they're excellent on most of the markets that you're going to have here. They're only a couple cents apart on like most of the majors. And if you go to like, say, Polygon, for example, decent spread there. If I go to something even smaller, decent spread here as well. The spreads are decent, but the order books aren't going to be super thick on RabbitX. Now, in terms of trading fees, RabbitX is a little bit more on the expensive side at 0.07% for taker. So that's going to be the highest out of all of the perpetual futures DEXs that I'm going to be speaking about today. But they do make up for it by charging nothing for maker orders. So that's pretty nice. In terms of leverage, you can get 20x leverage on basically all of the markets. For advanced order types, they have what you need: limit, market, stop limit, stop markets, mostly what you would expect from a perpetual futures DEX. Now, in terms of special features, They have gasless trading, so no need to worry about signing anything else for gas or paying additional gas fees there. It's quite nice. The next perpetual futures DEX I wanted to talk about is ApeX. So ApeX exists on its own layer 2. I think they're using Starkware tech, so it's going to be very similar to what you have with, like, say, DYDX, but just on a smaller operation. So in terms of the number of pairs you can actually trade here, you have 21 different pairs. And they're 21 different good ones, you know. A lot of the stuff, like, say, like Blur, for example, you'll want to trade, of course. BNB, Solana, most of the economically relevant layer ones. Pepe, you know, meme coins. What else do we have? Dogecoin, DYDX, Celestia. So, you know, a good mix of markets that you can actually trade here on ApeX. Now, the liquidity here is decent, comparable to what we have seen with other perpetual futures dexes in this video. And in terms of spreads, they're tight on all of the markets. I mean, you don't have that many markets here to trade on ApeX, but they made sure that all of them are, like, relatively tight. So if I go to Chainlink, for example, it's relatively tight here. But if you do go into something like Celestia, it's a little bit wider, but that's because Celestia is like a new market, not a lot of volume going through here, and the order book is pretty thin on Celestia. Now, in terms of leverage, ApeX offers up to 15x leverage on all of their markets here, no matter what you want to trade, so that's pretty nice. And in terms of fees, they're charging 0.05% for taker, which is pretty much middle of the road, in line with what we're seeing with other perpetual futures dexes out there. I mean, it's still cheaper than RabbitX, but it's twice as expensive as Hyperliquid, and it's in line with Aevo. So this is like pretty standard fees that ApeX is actually charging. Now, going into advanced order types, I'd have to connect my wallet in here, but they do have all of the advanced order types that you would typically want to use for a perpetual futures dex, so don't worry about that. And in terms of special features, so they have gasless trading as well. Additionally, you are paid to trade there. So the more that you trade on ApeX, the more ApeX tokens you'll actually receive. Now, the last perpetual futures dex I wanted to talk about today is Drift, which is a perpetual futures dex that exists on Solana, and something that I've talked about on this channel for a while. I featured like Drift on my channel since 2021, and they've really gone a long way since their launch in 2021. So in terms of markets on Drift, you have about 19 markets that you can actually trade, and they vary in quality. So you've got some good ones. So of course, you know, Sol, Bitcoin, ETH, BNB, Injective's pretty cool that they have that. Render's pretty cool that they have that as well. I think they might have been the first place to implement Rollbit perpetual futures too. In terms of liquidity, there's plenty of liquidity on the majors, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, but as you go down, there's less liquidity on some of these pairs. In terms of spreads, they're on the higher end. And the spreads here on Bonk, for example, are like way too high in comparison to some of the other perp dexes that I've spoken about today. Now, in terms of the leverage that Drift offers, you're getting up to 20x leverage on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then it goes down to 10x leverage on most of the other markets. And then some of the smaller markets that have less liquidity, you're getting 5x leverage. So like Pepe, Rollbit, Helium, and Bonk, you're getting low amounts of leverage that is actually being offered to you. Now, going on to the fees that Drift actually charges, they charge 0.01% notional taker, which is extremely cheap. And for Maker, they actually giving fee rebates. Now, in terms of order types, they've got them all there, you know, all the standard ones that you'd want to use. Now, onto special features that Drift has. Now, this is where I think Drift really excels in comparison to the other perpetual futures dexes out there. So, all deposits that you have on Drift immediately start earning yield. Now, not only that, you can use various different tokens as collateral here on Drift. So you can use stable, so USDC, USDT. You can use different versions of Sol. So Sol, Marinade Sol, Jito Sol, Wrapped Bitcoin, Wrapped ETH. In terms of perpetual futures dexes out there, they offer the most flexibility in what you want to use as collateral to trade against, which I think is really cool from Drift. Another cool feature is that they have spot margin trading. Now, you might be saying, you know, why is this part of the perpetual futures dex review? Well, when you have spot margin trading as part of the perpetual futures DEX and it's all part of the same platform, it just makes it easier to farm funding rates. So that was it for this video, the top 5 best perpetual futures DEXs to trade on right now. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one.